General Yvonne's doing the best he can to start getting them out the door today to take care of folks in the municipalities, for starters. They handed out 850,000 N95s yesterday, another 890,000 or so coming out today as well, doing everything you can to make sure that you can stay safe during this spike in COVID infections. Talking to our healthcare leaders and commissioner and our hospital leaders, I urge our municipalities, when they get these hundreds of thousands of tests, and when you receive them, make sure they go to folks as a priority in need. If you're showing symptoms, get a test. If you're going to be going into school on Monday, public safety worker, forward-facing public folks, feel like you may have something going on, get a test. Otherwise, if you can hold off a little bit, we're going to have a lot more tests in the next couple of weeks, but that would allow us to prioritize people that are most in need. And we got enough tests to be able to do that. That said, we set out guidance on our schools this morning. As far as right now, all of our schools are going to be open as scheduled, as needed. Again, if you're a teacher or an educator and you think maybe you ought to get tested before you go back to school, we have the test for you. We've also told the schools that, look, if you're immunocompromised or somebody at home at risk, or you've got to quarantine, schools are allowed to let you do remote learning, which is fine. But otherwise, we want everybody back in school. We know that there's no compromise with in-person learning. We found a year and a half ago we can do it safely. I believe even now in this Omicron day, we'll be able to do that safely as well. And we do have vaccinations. We do have boosters readily available. All of our teachers virtually are vaccinated and boosted, have access to the N95 mask. That ought to give you a lot of confidence as we figure out next week and beyond. I can tell you, talking to a lot of the local stores, in particular the restaurants, people are erring on the side of caution, which is what Connecticut does and for which I am very thankful. I say in the sense that, just 3 or 4 months ago, our restaurants were at probably 120% of where they were a year earlier. Today, they're 30% down. I don't wish that on anybody, except to tell you that people are erring on the side of safety. People feel more comfortable going into, say, a restaurant where they have maybe some outdoor eating options, or the people ask if you've been vaccinated, and I think that's how we'll be able to keep our restaurants and stores open going forward. But the main message I want to give you is a real shout out to the folks in emergency operations, the folks in public safety, in particular, the Connecticut Guard. You ought to give a big, warm welcome to those folks who have been here, round the clock, bringing in 426,000 tests overnight, and more to come. And as those more to come, we'll be able to get those more widely distributed, get them available in our schools, get some of those available in hospitals and other forward-facing folks. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Governor, I'm looking at some of the shipping labels here, and they say that they were meant for other states. So were these test kits rerouted here to Connecticut? Were they originally meant for other places? Can you sort of explain that?
I can't tell you whether they were originally meant for other places. I can tell you that they're here, and I wouldn't be saying anything about tests unless they were here. We went up the food chain. We talked to the most senior people we could. We got ourselves to the front of the line, doing everything I can to keep the people of Connecticut safe.
But you don't know where they came from?
I know who the distributors are, I know who the wholesalers are, and I know they're here.
I did want to ask you as well, and I know we're looking forward here, but there was a pallet of test kits that went out yesterday from iHealth Labs, which was the distributor that had the delay in the shipping. iHealth Labs has an F rating from the Better Business Bureau, multiple customer complaints. Is that a supplier who you should have worked with, or do you regret even reaching out to them?
Well, two pieces of that question. First, yes, we sent out thousands of test kits yesterday, mainly to the most vulnerable communities, homeless shelters, at food banks and the such, just to make sure those people are safe. Look, there are 8 or 10 now rapid testing companies out there. FDA is getting them approved. iHealth is one of them. I can't tell you about their Better Business Bureau rating. I can tell you that they were rated and approved by the FDA. So we'll keep talking.
Governor, when did all these tests come in?
Go ahead.
I think they came in the middle of the night. We have truckers who are going round the clock, and we have more coming today.
Governor, so are any of the 15,000 tests that you talked about yesterday for Food Share and the housing authorities, are they here or are these in addition to?
These are in addition to.
These are in addition to, and they came in last night?
Yes.
And do we have?
And early this morning.
Okay. Is it possible to see the purchase orders and the contracts for those? I mean, are they different suppliers?
I can't tell you. Well, there are a lot of different suppliers, and there are a lot of different makes. And we have a purchase order for each and every one of them. Purchase orders are good. I don't have to pay until I see the product, test the product, make sure it's the product we contracted for.
And are you still working with Mr. Barlow to get the larger order through? Or,
I believe that's true.
So that's still in process?
I think so.
Okay.
Look, we're in discussions with, let's say, 30 different providers right now. The one you mentioned provided a lot of support for us last time around when we were desperate for masks in particular. So I believe those conversations continue.
So he delivered last time, was unable to deliver this time.
Let me get back to you on that.
If the state had an agreement with iHealth or anybody else and they didn't come up with their side of the agreement, is the state going to sue anybody? I mean, lawsuits don't necessarily solve everything, but is the state going to sue anybody for breaking a deal with the state?
I doubt it. I doubt it. Right now, I want to get more masks here. I want to talk to all the providers. I don't want to be sitting around talking about lawsuits. I want to talk about getting more tests right here.
Well, as far as business, can I just follow up on the business question? I mean, ethically in business, I mean, a lot of your staff is from the Yale School of Business. I mean, was what Mr. Barlow has done ethical? I mean, you said that he misrepresented.
I don't know about him. I don't know about that particular case. I do know, going back, Christine, to a year and a half, there were a lot of agreements made to get masks arrived, and they were getting swooped up. Sometimes the feds picked them up. Sometimes they got rerouted to somebody else. I think you're seeing a little bit of that gold rush frenzy when it comes to testing. The good news is 426,000 tests right here.
Now, you mentioned that some of the tests were going to be going out today, if possible. I know a lot of municipalities had scheduled, times when people were going to go and be able to pick them up today, yesterday, et cetera. Have you reached out to any of the municipal leaders to try to schedule those again today?
Well, I can hand that over to Fran Yvonne. Municipalities, when they see this press conference, they know we got 426,000 tests. They'll be reaching out to General Yvonne. I don't think we can get all of them out to everybody today, but we're going to do the best we can.
Okay, is the standard operating procedure to not have a contract, but rather a purchase order? I mean, this is millions of dollars in taxpayer money that we're talking about. Is this standard?
A purchase order is like a contract. A purchase order is better than a contract. It's a guarantee of payment based upon delivery of the tests as they come in after our inspections. So I feel very good on the nature of the relationship we had to have these delivered on a timely basis.
And I know you're saying that the tests are here, which is great, but were we outbid? How did that work out?
Nothing is standard operating procedure right now. Can I just give you a hint? It's a little bit of Wild West out there. Fortunately, we have strong relationships with a lot of distributors that go back a year and a half. And I think what you see here, you're going to see multiplied over the next few weeks.
Governor, I walked around this facility yesterday, and it is pretty incredible to see the masks, the sanitizers, the gowns, all of these things that have been stockpiled since the beginning of the pandemic. Rapid test kits are not new. They've been out for some months. So it begs the question, should these kits have already been here?
You maybe remember going back 6 months ago, all the emphasis was on vaccinations. I don't think people were as focused on testing. We were closing down mass testing facilities, urging people to get tested, but obviously a lot less urgency to do that. Omicron came hard. We've seen the great spike up. I think that was a surprise to everybody in the federal government and probably 49 other governors as well. That said, we have 426,000 tests right here ready to go.
Was it a day late and a dollar short? Should these kits have already been here?
Yeah, I would say everything, going back 2 years, has been a day late and a dollar short. We could have ordered masks a month earlier. We could have been stricter on sanitization standards. We were learning along the way, but we're way ahead of, 48 other states.
One more for you. With regard to schools, you've had a screen and stay policy that you put in place. And when I asked about that policy back when it was implemented, you said the reason it wasn't a test and stay policy was because those kits were in short supply and they were too expensive. Now the kits are here, and more are on the way. So will screen and stay turn into test and stay?
Let's allocate the tests we have right now. Screen and stay is still, I think, very effective for kids in a classroom wearing a mask. If you're not showing symptoms, you can get back in the classroom. But you're absolutely right. More broadly, it's going to be test and stay. If there's been a infection or something like that, we'll be able to get tests out to people.
So who is going to prioritize these test kits? You said that they're going to be going out and there's going to be priority given to certain groups. Who is responsible for policing that?
Right now, we're sending it out to the municipalities with our guidance that focus on the vulnerable, focus on the forward-facing folks, focus on people that are showing symptoms so that they can either stay in the game or get off the battlefield if that's where they belong.
How are municipalities going to determine that? I mean,
They're pretty smart. They got their departments of public health. They don't need mandates. We've got, Manisha has given some guidance on this is the best way to have these distributed, and now I'm going to rely on our departments of public health.
When is the first municipality set to pick some of these up? Is there a schedule in place right now?
Do you know that, General Yvonne? I think there's not a schedule yet, is there?
There's not a schedule yet.
Well, will this go out starting today to municipalities?
Yeah, why don't you take that?
I'm sorry, the question?
When will this start to go to towns and cities in Connecticut?
We're working that as we speak right now.
Will they start today, though?
That's the goal, yes.
Can you kind of talk about the logistics, because I think people at home, that's the most important thing that people want to know is when are we going to see these test kits in the hands of people in the cities and towns that we live in? So how does that process work? What can people expect?
So there are regional pods that we set up, point of distribution at the 5 regions that we work with our emergency management and our regional coordinators. So any of this inventory, whether it's test kits, masks, or anything else, hand sanitizer, we will deliver to a regional pod, and they will distribute that to within their community or municipality.
Is there a priority for a city or a town to get it, that you guys are delivering first to certain regional pods? What's the...
That's all being worked right now as we speak.
Now, this is just very much the start. When can we expect other shipments to arrive?
I don't have that information on when the other shipments are arriving. We have 426,000, and I believe there's another shipment of potentially 100,000 that'll be inbound today as well.
We've learned to talk about that when we see them right here. Seeing is believing. You can see these.
Can you or the governor tell us how much of what we're looking at here was in the pipeline and how much, for lack of a better term, was overnight based on the problems you've had this week?
I can start. I can just tell you, Chris, we have multiple conversations going on with every single distributor far and wide, getting to the front of the line. I accelerated those big time over the last couple of weeks, doing everything we can as we saw Omicron coming to make sure we can get to the front of the line and end up where we are today with 400,000 plus tests.
Governor, we're seeing, municipalities scour for the PPE. Is that something that you would encourage, or does that complicate things when other towns are kind of entering the fray?
Look, we were getting a lot of tests from the federal government, but I wasn't going to wait for the federal government. I was going to do everything I can to get our tests now as a bridge to the federal government. So I think a lot of our municipalities are pretty smart. I see Luke Bronin in Hartford and Aaron Stewart right here in New Britain. They went out and they said, look, thank God the governor's going to do everything he can to get us testing, but let's see what we can do on our own in the meantime.
Do you think that this at-home testing will actually alleviate some of the lines at the PCR testing places? I mean, there was a 9-hour wait in one place to get a test.
Yeah, we're doing more tests than we ever have in history right now. Obviously, everybody wants to get tested every day. I appreciate the stress there. So I can't say I'm going to be able to have enough tests to make that a possibility. But I think over the next couple of weeks, people are going to know we've got the testing capacity. We'll have a lot more room. If people say, I'm not showing symptoms, I don't have to tear open the box right now to get myself tested. And I can tell you from every supplier we got, we're going to be in really good shape over the next couple of weeks because they're ramping up the production really fast.
An update on positivity numbers today?
I don't have that for today, no.
And how accurate would those positivity rates be going forward, given that these at-home kits, they don't get reported to the state?
I think I don't put as much credence in those positivity numbers anymore. I think your point is well taken. People test at home. If they test negative, they don't say anything. If they test positive, they probably run to an emergency room. So my hunch is those numbers are less meaningful to me than hospitalizations. Southern part of the state, we still have very good capacity or good capacity in our hospitals. You know, some other areas in central Connecticut, a little tighter. So we're watching that very carefully.
And I don't see a public health expert here today, but I know you obviously consult with them on a daily basis. So what's your understanding of how these rapid kits should be used by someone? Because the CDC and the FDA has come out and questioned their accuracy with regard to being a diagnostic tool.
If you think you're showing symptoms, you don't know whether it's flu or COVID, rather than run to the emergency room, get access to one of these rapid tests, and I think that can give you some confidence. If you test positive, if you show you have an infection, you don't have to necessarily run to the emergency room. Stay home and quarantine for the 5 days. If you're not showing symptoms, you're okay. If you get a hold of a second test just to make sure you have a second negative, have a negative test, you're in better shape still, and so are we.
So this will allow teachers, did you say that teachers would be allowed to use these tests to continue to stay in school?
Yeah, absolutely. When we get these out to the municipalities, you know, teachers, anybody showing a symptom, go get tested, give you that confidence you can be in the classroom safely.
Governor, you mentioned it's kind of the Wild West out there trying to get a hold of these supplies. Just wondering if you can expand on it a little. What's it like behind the scenes trying to get a hold of some of these when you're kind of dealing with other states and things like that?
Well, they're getting the call from 49 other governors. I can start with that. When demand outstrips supply, when there's this incredible urgency from the population to get these, it gives the brokers a certain amount of leverage. We were careful last time, we're careful this time. We're not paying until we get the product, and we got the product.
Governor, are you thinking of bringing back the mask mandate anytime soon?
No, I'm not. We're handing out, you know, millions and millions of N95s. As I alluded to in restaurants and the such, I think people are doing the right thing. I think more and more people are wearing the mask indoors, which I think is really smart. Tonight's New Year's Eve. If you're not with people you know really well, be extraordinarily careful. We're suffering a spike that goes back from the early days of, you know, the holidays, going back 10 days. I don't want to accelerate that.
You do seem to be looking forward, but in other words, have you tasked anybody on your staff? In other words, yesterday we were told that, you know, people were loading things onto a plane. Somehow the plane didn't come to Connecticut. Number one, where did it go? And number two, have you assigned anybody on your staff to tell you exactly what has happened? Or number three, do you know exactly what has happened?
We know that we were told no in certain terms, even with pictures, that the tests are in the plane. We know that the plane didn't take off, or it didn't take off and come to Connecticut, as was contracted via our purchase order. I got plenty of time to do postmortems on this thing. In the meantime, I got to get more tests into the state, and that's my prime focus.
And also, we saw CVS trucks here. Would you say CVS has helped bail the state out, or was that in the pipeline?
I would say that CVS has been a really good partner for the state of Connecticut. One last question?
Yes, Governor, you mentioned, is there going to be an additional cost, do you think, did we get a good deal on the test that was supposed to come in on Wednesday, and is there going to be an additional cost for these ones?
It's not the ideal time to be price shopping. I can guarantee you we got the best price we can, and I can guarantee you the prices are going to go down over the course of the next month.
Do you think that there's going to be an additional burden on the taxpayers because of this?
Well, this is all paid for with the federal money, and we're able to go back to FEMA and see if we can get reimbursement there. So I think the taxpayers should be confident that they're not stuck holding the bag, and more importantly, they've got a test. Thanks, everybody.
Wait, Governor,
Oh.
do you have a New Year's resolution?
Aha!
It's New Year's Eve.
It is.
Bill Belichick almost had that, but go ahead.
Well, peace on earth, goodwill to man, and plain keyboard for the Rolling Stones. That's what I really love. See you guys.